So hello everyone, I'm Lindsey Holmstrom. I'm a veterinary medical officer with USDA's Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service, or APHIS, veterinary services. And so within VS, I'm with the National Preparedness and Incident Coordination Center. And so this center is responsible for coordination of animal emergencies events, which would include an FMD outbreak in the US or its territories. And then my center also leads foreign animal disease exercises and trainings. I'm also a veterinary epidemiologist by training and serve as an epidemiologist on one of the incident management teams within USDA, which are the teams that would deploy during an outbreak response. So very happy to be with all of you today and participate in this important international seminar on foot and mouth disease and discuss USDA's preparedness and response activities. So USDA's Foreign Animal Disease Preparedness and Response Planning, or FAD-PREP. FAD-PREP is a set of strategic concept of operation documents, disease response plans, standard operating procedures, and other materials to create a comprehensive approach to managing foreign animal diseases. And so you see the website link at the bottom of the slide there, which will take you to all of our materials regarding foreign animal disease preparedness and response. By the end of 2015, the United States experienced its largest foreign animal disease outbreak in its history, which was the outbreak of highly pathogenic avian influenza. And so after this outbreak, APHIS has tested its response capabilities mostly with poultry, with various foreign animal disease outbreaks between 2016 and 2020. So again, that included both highly pathogenic avian influenza outbreaks, as well as the most recent outbreak of virulent Newcastle disease, which was mostly contained in Southern California. And we also do a lot of planning and execution of tabletop and functional exercises, including one for foot and mouth disease in 2018. And so I will also note that the last time we had FMD in the United States was in 1929. So our current version of the USDA FMD response plan reflects knowledge and lessons learned during all these activities and lessons learned from outbreaks in other countries. We continue to work with our state animal health officials, with industry, with our laboratories and related sectors on planning and preparedness activities. So if we detect an outbreak, we're not starting from scratch, but we have a plan and we can adjust that plan based on the tools and capabilities that we have. And so these activities include learning from previous foreign animal disease outbreaks. They include conducting exercises and domestic and international activities to support preparedness and response, such as participating in this seminar. So this is just showing you a screenshot of what our foreign animal disease preparedness and response website looks like for foot and mouth disease. So again, this is the location of all of our materials. I mentioned that I provided the link in the previous slide to this website, but this is what the landing page will look like for the foot and mouth disease site, and where you can find our response plan, as well as many other related materials, such as our current thinking on the use of FMD vaccine during an outbreak, our epidemiological questionnaires, and links to other supporting documents like cleaning and disinfection, depopulation and euthanasia, and then links to the response plans and materials to other foreign animal diseases. I will note that you will see that most of our response plans say draft on the front page, and this is on purpose, and this is because we continue to update these response plans as our knowledge, science, and tools available advance. So the objectives of our foot and mouth disease plan are to both identify the capabilities needed to respond, and then identifying those critical activities of a response. And so these critical activities would all occur under the authority of an incident command and the National Incident Management System. So what is the National Incident Management System? So within USDA, we have an emergency response framework, which is based on the framework that is used by all United States federal agencies for responding to any emergencies. And so the system gives the specific authorities and approach for responding to domestic incidents. So for example, USDA would be the lead authority for outbreaks in livestock and poultry. This system is scalable and flexible as needed for the incident, and the key components are preparedness, communications, information and resource management, scalability, and ongoing management and maintenance. And so the U.S. does trainings on these components across the federal and state government and the industry and related stakeholders. And we see any response as being a three-pronged approach. And so that's the reference of the stool that you're seeing there on the slide. But any response would involve our industry and private sector, our state, and our federal government. And so here are some of the roles that USDA would have during a response. So first of all, we would be the coordinating agency. We would have a coordinated awareness campaign, and this would occur in conjunction with any response strategy. We expect that the USDA secretary would immediately take necessary steps to declare an extraordinary emergency, which establishes USDA as the leader of a coordinated national response to control and eradicate FMD and ensure availability of funding and additional resources of a response. So the key thing to point out in this declaration of extraordinary emergency is that the USDA is being able to, with this emergency, bring all of its resources to a response, which can include emergency funding, obtaining equipment, and providing direct action in need to states, territories, or tribes that are impacted when we confirm an FMD detection. It also allows the secretary to get resources and funding at the start of an outbreak immediately. The next item is that USDA would issue a national movement standstill after the first confirmation of foot and mouth disease for a specified time period. So for example, for 72 hours. And this would prohibit all movement of susceptible species and germplasm, which increases the ability of USDA to stop disease spread and act to restore movement on a regionalized basis. We would coordinate the response, including deploying incident management teams if requested, and provide access to our national veterinary stockpile, which is access to supplies, equipment, vaccines, and response support services. And then we would take measures for control and eradication of FMD that are internationally recognized, approved, and supported by science, and measures to support our agricultural industries, which would include providing indemnity or payment for any animals depopulated. And so another resource that the USDA has is our laboratory network, which would be a resource also for an FMD response. So our National Veterinary Services Laboratories, or NVSL, is the official reference laboratory for all foreign animal disease diagnostic testing and study in the United States. And so you can see the locations of those official reference laboratories in the US if you find the blue stars there on the map. So we have one in Ames, Iowa, which is sort of in the central US, and then one on the northeast coast, which is called Plum Island, which is an island off of New York. And so these two laboratories provide all confirmatory testing in the United States. And so the laboratory there in the northeast coast, that blue star on Plum Island, it would perform our confirmatory testing for foot and mouth disease. And I should note that by 2023, we expect that island there in Plum Island to move centrally to Kansas. We also have the National Animal Health Laboratory Network, and this network consists of 59 laboratories, of which 47 are approved to perform foot and mouth disease diagnostic testing. And so those are the purple diamonds that you see throughout the United States. And so through this network, USDA is able to coordinate the veterinary diagnostic laboratory capacity of state animal health laboratories. And so the network provides a means for early detection of FMD, for rapid response through surge capacity to test outbreak samples, and recovery by the capability to test large numbers of samples to show freedom from foot and mouth disease. And so the goals of an FMD response are to detect, control, and contain FMD in livestock, to eradicate the disease, and to provide science and risk-based approaches and systems to facilitate continuity of business. And as I previously mentioned, there are 23 critical activities that USDA would be coordinating with our state partners as part of a unified command. And so some of these activities are listed here on the slide and include everything from communication to movement controls, quarantine, biosecurity, tracing, surveillance, permitting, depopulation, and vaccination. And so our standard operating procedures for all of these are on our website at that FADPrep link. And then USDA and its partners conduct exercises, workshops, and trainings on all of these. And so the response strategy or strategies that USDA would implement may include stamping out by itself, stamping out in the use of FMD vaccine, with animals that receive vaccine either be euthanized, perhaps after the outbreak is over, They could be sent to slaughter through permit for domestic consumption, or they'd be allowed to live out their productive lives. And then a final strategy might be the use of FMD vaccine with no stamping out. And so it really could be a combination of these different strategies. And so it's hard to know exactly what our response will be because it depends on a lot of factors. And so the factors influencing which response strategy we implement include things such as the consequences of the outbreak, the acceptance of the response policy, the scale and scope of the outbreak and how quickly it's spreading, the availability of vaccine, so we know that we're not going to have vaccine available day one of an outbreak, and then the resources available to implement these response strategies. And so specific to vaccine, USDA's policy on FMD vaccination is that it would be considered during an FMD outbreak. And so any FMD response might use a variety of vaccination strategies, so both the protective type strategies where you might be vaccinating outside or away from affected areas, as well as containment strategies where you might be using a vaccine within or around impacted areas. But regardless, the use of the emergency vaccine will be a determination and a decision that's made jointly between the USDA Chief Veterinary Officer, the state animal health official, as well as the unified command. And so this is a figure that's taken from our FMD response plan that's demonstrating the different types of zones and areas we would use during an FMD response. And it's similar to other countries' response plans as well as OIE guidelines. And so you see that black X there, if that were in an infected premises, so infected with FMD, we would then have at least a minimum of a 3-kilometer area around that infected premises, which would be our infected zone. And then around that pink area in the middle, we would have a buffer zone, which is that blue area that would extend out at least 7 kilometers from that infected zone. And so both within that pink area and that blue area is where a lot of our critical activities I previously mentioned would occur. So everything from movement controls to quarantines to permitted movements to surveillance are all implemented within that area. And then anything outside those pink and blue areas we consider the free area. But we would have a designated 10-kilometer at minimum surveillance zone around our control area, and that's that kind of light gray shaded area that you're seeing there. And then obviously we would have surveillance that is done or performed within that zone. The yellow areas that you're seeing in this figure are demonstrating what I previously mentioned as far as different strategies for applying FMD vaccine that could be either close to where there's infected premises or the impacted area, which is shown in sort of that bigger figure, or it could be applied elsewhere within the U.S., so not necessarily near an infected area, which would be similar to a protective type vaccination strategy. So one of the most important parts of an FMD response is information management. And so how everything I just discussed is managed, both the data collection, guiding operations during an outbreak, monitoring the status of premises, all that is managed through USDA's Emergency Management Response System, or EMRS. So a screenshot of one of the landing pages of our EMRS system is shown there on the slide. So EMRS is our official system of record, and it has both mobile capabilities, so we can use it in the field, as well as be able to use it centrally. And so critical to any FMD response is having accurate data to allow for data-driven decision-making, to be able to allow decisions to happen at a faster pace, which is critical during an outbreak response. And so to finish, I'll just emphasize that we continue to work with our states, with our private sector, and with our industry associations on planning and capabilities for an FMD response. And we continue to update our FMD response plan and supporting documents accordingly as our knowledge, science, and tools available advance. And so with that, we just want to also extend our thanks to the organizers for allowing USDA's participation at this important seminar.